also an INL employee. Jody and I are both exposed workers at the INL. I'm a card carrier. I was exposed in November 8th of 2011 at the Zero Power Physics Reactor facility. It was uncontrolled airborne release of plutonium-239 MREC-241, in which I was an ARS survivor. I spent 8 months down in the basement, and of course I was told that I was clean when I was sent back, and I wasn't even close, because I filed a whistleblower complaint. Another gentleman and myself that is now deceased, Brian Simmons, and we both had blood markers, the clinical symptoms, the dose-dependent clinical symptoms of ARS in the hours and days following exposure. We were told that we had influenza, which we later found out. We were later get our blood, our CBC counts, and see that our white blood cells were down next to nothing after 5 hours, which would indicate a triple digit dose. When I was given my dose assignment, I didn't know a thing about radiation dose, but I instantly knew that my dose was falsified, because I started off with a dose of 256 millirem for the year, and after spending 8 months down in the basement because my urine and fecal were too hot to work in a radioactive area, I was told that I ended up the year with 200 milligrams. So I think, I don't know, I just looked at them and they told me that with a straight face, and I just said, hey, is it magic plutonium that you got here? Is that what we're exposed to? That actually takes away dose. But anyway, so I became compelled to learn the art and science of internal symmetry. And on November 19th, 2014, they brought out dose experts, NIOSH did, and I was able to prove that my dose was falsified. And the guy that was with me, Brian Simmons, he is also an ARS survivor, or he was. He died last August 29th. And anyway, he was also part of figuring out that our dose was falsified. But I went in there and they stopped me about 60% of the way through, and they said, hey, it's pretty obvious that there are serious issues with your dose calculation. And that's when I knew about 30% about what I know now. I can now add medical fraud and illegal destruction of exposure evidence to those accolades. Not to mention with the lung count manipulation. And I got a lot of people that were a lot smarter than me that helped me out with this. And these kinds of things, they affect epidemiology studies, health studies. They affect decisions on eligibility for medical help. And something's got to be done about that. You can't allow the same contractor, and it was also determined that it was willful negligence. So this was a rare case where in Idaho, there's a law where we could go directly after the company, which we did when we filed whistleblower lawsuits. But you can't, it's such a conflict of interest to allow the contractor, who is financially motivated by DOE to show low dose assignments, to destroy exposure evidence. Now these are not just accusations I'm making. These are things that I can show you with paper, with evidence. I can show it in a court, which is why they decided not to go to court with me. But what I've done is I'm here to basically, offer my services to teach a board how to spot this stuff, because I've been doing it for the last 10 years, and unless you know what to look for, you're not going to see it. But it's a problem. If you look at the OWCP regulations, it says in there that 98% of all DOE radiologically induced cancers within the DOE complex were deemed to be caused at safe levels. Now that tells me that there's a lot of dose falsification going on. And the INL is not the only place that it's going on. But I would be more than happy to come in and talk to or teach or show you what to look for in any capacity. Also, I was kind of a lucky guy because I had a blood ferritin level, and I'm not sure if there's any physicians here or anything like that, if they understand what a blood ferritin level is. But it's a correlation with how much heavy metal is in your body. Heavy metal in my body was americium and plutonium. And I did biopsies of my bone marrow and my liver, because my liver and my kidneys were going south. And they found heavy stores of plutonium, and which I was told I lost those. I was 20% lower in my final dose than what I started with. I don't pay attention to things sometimes. Anyway, this kind of stuff can't go on if you're gonna keep accurate. If you're gonna keep accurate records, if you're gonna truly be able to say nuclear workers are safe, you've got to be able to rely. You got to be able to rely on that doctor, doing his fiduciary commitment to his patient, which he didn't. And I got a dead friend because of it. The guy was standing right next to me, 38 years old. And when he was actually killed, but when he was killed, he was been vomiting blood for 3 years. He had nosebleeds. He had paranoia schizophrenia, which a lot of the Chernobyl ARS survivors developed. Like I said, I was lucky. I went in 2017 when I had all those issues. They told me they were going to keep me as healthy as they could for as long as they could. And she found a scientist who developed a deuterium depleted water that actually was able to chelate the radionuclides out of my body, which had never been medically done before. Because if all the medical science that I've read is once that the isotope reaches the organ of choice, it's there until it, just finally kicks off. Not true with this water. After 3 months, my kidneys and my liver came back online, perfectly functioning, but my lymphocytes were still low, which still is in line with the Chernobyl ARS survivors. Some of them, their lymphocytes lithocytes came back after 5 years. Some of them they never did. Mine were still low after 10 years. But I met a medical scientist who watched one of my podcasts and gave me free treatments and was able to bring my lymphocytes back up, which I think has never been done, as far as I understand. I've done a lot of research on it. I mean, I don't have perfect, I don't have the perfect, I haven't seen everything, but from everything that I've ever read, these are things that I would be glad to share. And, they could have homeland security implications because what we were involved with was the same thing as a dirty bomb. And this water chelated everything out of the body. And so that would eliminate a lot of the, risk to people who were in something like that. Just an idea.
Thank you. Thank you for discussing this. Thank you.
Yeah, but I've left my information up there, so if that's something you'd like to do, just give me a call.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next, I think we're going to hear from someone on the phone.